Hello and welcome to Letters from Camp. I'm really excited for this month's episode because we have someone who is actually at camp right now. So it's my pleasure to welcome in CIT Director Adam Morse. Adam, how are you today?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Fantastic. How's the summer been going?
Summer's been going well. It's been a little moist, a little rainy, a little damp here and there. A lot of mud, but that doesn't stop the program from going on. We got a few days of good weather now, so that's pretty good.
That's good. Yeah, definitely. Rain has been the theme of the season.
Indeed.
So we always like to start with kind of your camp story. So kind of take us through when you came to camp, your camper years, staff years, and kind of what areas you've worked in.
Sure. So I was a first year camper. I first came to camp as a camper in 2002. I had been to camp before as a Weeblo, I think twice for a weekend in September for a couple of years. So that would put my first time stepping foot onto the property in maybe September of 2000 or something. But I wasn't old enough to go to summer camp until 2002. So it was June, week 2, 2002 is when my troop, 1 Acton, would come. And so I was a camper 02, 03, 04, 05, 06. I went to Provo week 7, 03, 04, and 05. And 05, I went to Philmont. So I only went week 7 that year. And I went once more as a camper during my year as a CIT. And I was a CIT in 2006 and began on paid staff in 2007. And I worked in nature for 5 years, including 2 years as the director. And I worked in shooting sports, archery and shotgun, 2012 archery, and then 13, 14, 15, 3 years at the shotgun range, shooting sports director. And since 2016, I've been an admin, I've been the CIT director. So that's sort of my camper to CIT to staff trajectory, I suppose.
You're not the only person who's gone from like ecology to shooting sports. It's kind of an interesting trajectory, but it somehow works for people.
It is interesting, and I loved being the nature director. I loved ecology. I did it for a long time. But I had a little bit of a background in archery when I was younger, and I always liked doing shooting sports. And I sort of fell into it after I started. I really enjoyed working in those areas. And shotgun is great because you're working 1-to-1 with scouts and scoutmasters. And I liked that kind of thing where you're responsible for sort of one shooter at a time, and that kind of instruction I really enjoyed. So it was an interesting transition, but it was, in many ways, teaching wise and program wise, kind of similar to what I was doing in nature before.
Mm-hmm. So you've been the CIT director for quite a while now. You've seen a lot of CITs kind of come through the program. What do you think are some, common misconceptions about the program and kind of maybe your overall, what do you think the value of the program is to camp?
So I think a common misconception about the CIT program is that it's all work and no play, no fun, which is not true at all. There's so many fun things you get to do as a CIT. You get to kayak, you get to go up the mountain, you get to do cope. You get to take 2 merit badges so you continue your advancement if you want to, because you're 14 or 15. So you have opportunities like that. And it's not all just raking leaves. Staff week, you're doing a lot of physical work. But during the rest of the summer, you're working in all the program areas. You're getting a flavor for what it's like to be in shotgun or in nature or at the waterfront or at the climbing tower. And it's cool to be able to run program with scouts in all those different areas. And that's an incredible opportunity. And a lot of people discover the areas they love to work in when they want to apply for staff. And they learn that and discover that they're having more fun as a staff member than they even had as a camper. And some people don't think that's possible, but indeed it is, because the program becomes so second nature to you that you just start loving your work so much. And I think that's what the CIT program offers people, is the opportunity to do those sorts of things, but then see things that way. And you learn a lot of important life skills. And I don't know if people recognize that that's what goes on. And you meet friends that you know for probably the rest of your days. I talked to several friends, Alec Gerhardt, Brennan Cooper, some of my closest friends, and we were all CITs together. So you make those relationships, and there's a deep meaning involved with that as well. So
Yeah, definitely. Having a fair bit of time between, when you were a CIT and now, what have you seen kind of changes to the program over the years?
I mean, I like to think that what I've done with the program, I've tried to expand what the CITs are able to do. So when I take the CITs up the mountain, I never did that as as a CIT. I wasn't led in anything like that. I take the CITs to Sagey Island a couple times a summer. So those are expansions to like what's available. I try to make the trainings a little bit more interactive, a little bit more activity based and more interesting in those ways. So I've tried to add to it on those levels, and we have more program areas than we used to. So the CITs have more opportunities for places to work and badges to earn than existed in 2006. So those are the major changes I've seen, but truthfully, it's very similar to how it was way back when. And I think there's a lot of value in it being, very much the same as it was all those years ago.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I like too is even when I was a CIT, and I was a CIT in 1995, but I can really vividly remember a Wednesday night barbecue night, and I was just looking for a place to sit, and some older staff members, senior staff were like, "Hey, come sit down," and that kind of, you're a part of the staff, and I was looked at like that, and I think that's one really thing maybe people don't realize that is that like when you're a CIT member, you're a staff member, for all intents and purposes, not drawing a paycheck, but everything else kind of you're getting those being a part of the experience.
Exactly. I agree. Yeah.
All right. So when I think of Adam Morse, I think of music, whether it was, when you used to play banjo outside the trading post or, you playing guitar at campfires. You performed for years at campfires. Why do you think music is so important to the campfire program and to camp in general?
Yeah, great question. So music is a tradition in most American summer camps, and it goes back to the early mid 20th century, where music just became something in terms of singing around a campfire is the traditional thing. What we do at Camp Lenaxit is we really try and involve people in song and involve people in music. And that happens in the dining hall at the end of breakfast or dinner. It happens in the opening and closing campfire when we lead people in songs and the staff join in around the campers sitting in the stands in the amphitheater. And then, I've done my song at the opening and closing campfire with my guitar. Back in the day, I was playing bluegrass banjo. I was doing that. And over the past, say, 5 or 6 years, I've developed the Lenaxit Players, the house band, into something new and different. And the first iteration of that, I think, was in 2009. Back at that time, played one song, I think, at closing campfire. I brought it back in 2011 briefly, and then it sort of lay dormant for a while. But then there were all these musicians that were on staff. And I said, why don't we try and put our heads together with all our different styles and abilities and do something performance-based? And so, and every Thursday now we have the Lenaxit Players, and we have horn players, we have guitar players, we have vocalists, we have keyboardists, bass players. And so, that end of it as well, I try and encourage people to enjoy the music, but my hope by people being exposed to these different styles that I play, roots, blues, folk music, which is really the music of summer camp is folk music, is that they'll take that and discover that and have some curiosity that they develop about it later on in the future. And so to me, that's what Camp Lenaxit is certainly all about, is learning something new, discovering something new, and then running with it and following it as far as it interests you. And I think there's a lot of messages embedded within music, lyrically or musically. There's people will learn something from hearing the music, either for the first or for the millionth time. So it's a tradition that for me goes very far back, even beyond me. My grandfather worked at a summer camp in the Catskills after World War II. And when he was going to NYU on the GI Bill, and he met someone there who was the music leader for the camp, and his name was Pete Seeger. And Pete Seeger, has always been one of my biggest musical influences because of that connection through my family. And so, what Seeger did, I could never do, but, bringing music to younger people and having them discover things through it and then making music on their own, camp is a great space, a great setting to be able to convey those sorts of skills and those interests. So it's just a great place to do all of it.
Yeah. Bruce Springsteen did an album of Seeger covers.
He did.
Seeger sessions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just, as you were talking that, I was just, in my mind thinking of all the musicians we've had who've come through camp, whether it was Jonathan Ho playing the cello or Andrew Chirac with the trumpet or Kevin Marshall, we had a lot of really great musicians, and it's been definitely a strength to our campfire program.
Yes, agreed.
What's your favorite song you performed at a campfire?
It's a great question. It's hard. I don't know if I can narrow down just one. I have maybe three. Last summer, I performed a song on my own, my song called 52 Miles to Sandusfield. It's about driving. It's about cross-country driving. It's about labor in your job and all these things mashed together. And it's a very personal song. And I really enjoyed playing that at the closing campfire last year. I'm really proud of that song. But years ago, I played a song in 2014. I did a song by Don McLean called Castles in the Air. And that's one of my favorite songs to pick on the guitar. It has drop D tuning and has a deep message about being in nature and being outside and having peace of mind. And it has a great message embedded within the lyrics. So that's up there with the songs that I've done.
I always liked you did I've just seen a face, right? The
We
Beatles
did
song.
that, yeah, with
Yeah.
the Winata Players 2011. We did that one.
Yeah, I like that one. That was a good
Yeah.
one. All right. So as we shift into our lightning round, same questions we ask every guest. So what is your favorite camp song?
My favorite camp song is probably Blood Upon the Risers. And that's because it's to the tune of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, which is, as a musician and a scholar, I think one of the best melodies that has come out of American music. It's very rhythmic and very catchy. And it's sort of a silly story about a guy who jumped out of an airplane without a parachute. But either way, it's a rousing song. It gets the dining hall going. It gets the campfire going. I learned it from Jonathan Ho in 2002 at my first friendship fire is when I first heard that song. And so therefore it's my favorite for those reasons.
Yeah, definitely I think there's a number of camp songs that have used that tune, to Battle Hymn of the Republic, which is Curtis Bateman out of Star Wars 1. And,
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That's a good one. How about your favorite camp skit?
My favorite camp skit is probably If I Weren't a Winoxid Staffer, particularly the version that I saw in 2003, which you must have been in, Mike, perhaps. And, Danny was in it. Jeff D was in it. Skillen was in it. Kev Murray was in it. Becky was in it. Dan Starr was in it. And I don't know, Danny's impersonation of the state trooper with the glasses and the hat and the mag light and Jeff D pretending to be the farmer milking, like Brendan Coop and I could not stop laughing. We were in stitches and we came back Provo, not just to see that, but we desperately wanted to watch that skit again because we were just dying in laughter. And I still laugh about it today.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. How about your favorite camp meal?
Probably the big breakfast. That may not be, people maybe don't choose breakfast as their favorite camp meals, but you get the eggs and the taters and it's just an assortment of things. Breaks up the monotony of the pancakes and the French toast, I think. So.
Yeah, definitely. Don't sleep on breakfast. That's a good one. How about your favorite place in camp?
It's changed. It used to be the Nature Den, and that was because I loved what the badges there. I loved the program there. I loved being in the center of camp. Because people would pass through on their way to the tower or the shotgun range, or they'd cut through to Brown Sea, or they go past to the shower house. And, as people are passing through, you try and bring them into the program. And you get a whole eclectic mix of people that are going somewhere else, but they pass through the den. And I loved the social aspect of that when I was working there. But I also love the OA field. It's become like my new favorite place to be. I love teaching badges down there. It's just a great spot looking out on the water from that low vantage point. At the bottom of the OA field.
And lastly, was there a person when maybe when you were a camper, your camp hero or staff member you looked up to?
Sure. Again, I have to admit there isn't just one. I have three.
Okay.
And just to briefly mention, Matt D was one because of his enthusiasm and how silly he was. Helped me come out of my shell a little bit. It made me feel like it was okay to be silly. Also, Alex Crew, who was sort of the opposite. He was a little bit more reserved for my own troop. And he was on staff my first year as a camper. And so I sort of looked up to him like, I'd like to be a staff member one day. But especially also George Whitcraft, who was the rifle director for many years back in the early 2000s. And George Whitcraft, he let me qualify for rifles the last round of week 7 in 2003. And I got my last qualification right before we split for Fort Joe. Because program was ending early, and it just meant so much for him to include me and to give me that opportunity. Because if he hadn't, I wouldn't have gotten the merit badge. But it was just a class act, especially for someone who was, turning 12 and wanted to be accepted. George Whitcraft was a quality staff member, and I've always remembered that moment.
Yeah, I love George. He was great. Um, well, I do have to say that this has been really cool because, you're someone who kind of hit, particular time right for me where I got to see, you as a camper and then as a junior staff and senior staff, and, that you're still there now as a administrator. It's great to see. Um, and, I'm definitely just, I think it's the cycle of camp, right? And so there's always, there were older staff members when I was there who I looked up to, and they saw me as a camper, and then they leave, and now I've left, and it's great to see it's always in good hands, and that there's always kind of the same sense of like what it means to be a staff member or an administrator. And I know you're doing really, really good things with the CIT program, and if any of our viewers are thinking about being a CIT, you definitely should reach out and be part of the program, because it definitely is I would say life-changing.
Indeed, absolutely, yeah. CIT@campleonoxet.org if anyone wants to reach out. So.
There we go. Any final thoughts? Any closing ideas from you?
Just thanks, Mike, for letting me be part of this. And it is amazing. It's 17 years, 18 summers now, including the summer that I've been here. And it's sort of been crazy. College, high school, college, and I went to grad school in Oregon, and I came back here every summer, and I taught and did all these cross-country drives, and it was a big commitment. But it may sound crazy, but working at Camp Lenox all these years and making the commitment to keep doing it, probably one of the best decisions I ever made. It's great to have a place where you're grounded. It's great to have a place to come back to, because it is your scouting home. There's no question about that. But if I had a second home, or my real home probably would be Camp Lenoxet, the base of Mount Monadnock. I feel more connected to it than any other place I've lived. And I've moved 20 times in 9 years, but I'm so glad to continue to be able to come back here and know some of the same people: Dan Megan, Will Neville, Andy Collins, and then some of the younger staff members that have now been here for 7 or 8 years. And having that cross-generational working relationship with so many folks is a real blessing. And I've learned so much from working here, and I've been able to apply what I learn out there in the world at camp, and vice versa. That's what you get out of, I think, coming to camp and working on staff. And people don't see that all the time, and you can't see the results of it necessarily, but it is going on, and those ripples keep going. So
great. Well, it's been a real pleasure talking with you, Adam, and I know you're going to go prepare probably for a 2 o'clock merit badge. So
yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of Letters from Camp.